Good afternoon. Okay, now it's on. So, small group, there's a lot of things going on, but one thing I want to start with is who has walking away today with one nugget, one new data point, one new nugget of information?
It's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool.
So that's what we're here for. And so with competing, we've got the students that are outside, we've got the vendors, we have 2 other sessions going on at the same time. So there's obviously a lot of information, a lot of excitement about cybersecurity. So I'm coming to cybersecurity from a couple of perspectives. One, I work at ManTech International. We're a large federal system integrator, and I sit on the board for the Charleston Defense Contractors Association, and I was chairing the education committee. So with those 2 frameworks and those 2, I'm not technical, I'll go right ahead and just say I'm not the cybersecurity expert, but you don't have to be. That's where cybersecurity is such a dynamic platform. I do have slides, if we could. Yes, thank you. And so from that, supply versus demand. So that's what I want to really focus on is there a workforce gap? And the answer is yes. But why is there one, and what can we do to close that? Why is the demand so high, and why is the supply so low? And so we're going to get into some very specific conversation points about that. So the next slide is closing the cybersecurity workforce gap just a fairy tale. So are there enough people interested in joining the workforce and being part of cybersecurity? Do they even know what really cybersecurity is? It's not like you have a uniform or a badge or something that identifies you as a cybersecurity professional. So is it just a fairy tale? And we'll talk about some of the numbers that are that the gap is. And so what we have to do, our charge, is to take all those tadpoles, the college students that we have, the high school students that we have, the STEM programs, and develop those tadpoles into princesses and princes, and then into the unicorns that everyone's looking for, especially in the defense industry when we talk about labor categories. So globally, the shortage is over 3 million cybersecurity professionals. Right now, we have 4.2 cybersecurity professionals in the workforce, and we need almost as many as we have globally. In the United States, we need you'll see numbers between 700,000 and 1 million more cybersecurity professionals. And so that's a very large gap. There's a poll out on the app that's asking, do we think it's a fairy tale? Can we close this cybersecurity workforce gap? And I think you heard earlier in the day that there are in the next 10 years, South Carolina alone will need more than 6,000 cybersecurity professionals. And so think of those numbers. We need 700,000 more, 660,000 in the private sector and 40,000 in the public sector. And right now, sitting in a foreign country, there are 100,000 hackers just sitting there 24/7. That's a small number. That's just one country. There are hundreds of thousands of hackers that are trying to defeat our defenses and our systems on a 24/7 basis. And so sticking with a few more numbers, we need 700,000 in the U.S. Right now, in the state of South Carolina, across all of our colleges, part-time students, full-time students, HBCUs, technical colleges, we have 239,000 students enrolled in programs. Only a fraction of them are enrolled in a cybersecurity program. And so even if all 239,000 of those students were enrolled in cybersecurity, there are many, many obstacles that would kind of not be barriers, but that would hinder them from joining the workforce tomorrow, and those are the barriers that we need to take down. So why is there a workforce gap? There's one on the bottom, that the burnout. We're going to work our way down to that. But number one, why is the demand so high? And so just a real quick show of hands. What do you think the number one reason that we have such a gap in our workforce? Why is the demand for cybersecurity professionals so high? Anyone have a guess of what the number one? It's cyber crimes. Cyber crimes, that defense side of things. Cyber crimes is the number one reason that the demand continues. The second one is our increased devices. Who has a smartphone with them today? Raise your hand. Who has a smartwatch? Who has an iPad with them or a computer with them? Who's connected to the Wi-Fi that's here today? All right, so all of those connected devices. Do you remember when the goal was to have a computer in every home? Now, just imagine, that would be one computer in every home. Imagine, think about all the devices you have at home. So the number we heard earlier today was that there are 29 billion connected devices, and that number is only going to continue to increase. So the number one reason, or the second reason that there's such a demand for cybersecurity professionals is all of our connected devices. And the second, or the third, is reliance on technology. So we've heard the saying, there's an app for that. There's an app for Chick-fil-A. You can avoid the line. There's an app for Chick-fil-A. It needs to be secure. Your credit card information is going on there. Almost everything you do is a digital transaction, automatic deposit. Remember when you actually got a paycheck and you took that to the bank? Well, what do you do now? It's electronically deposited. So that's another digital transaction. All of our financial information is out on the web. Who goes to the bank nowadays? Does anyone drive to the bank to deposit a check? Anything? Nope. If you get a check, which it's rare these days, but if you get a check, you snap a picture of it on your app. And so, again, the increased reliance on technology is why the demand will continue to grow. And then government regulations. We have executive orders. So I work in the federal as a federal system integrator, and we work in the defense industry, and there are regulations that we have to meet, and those executive orders for secure networks. The talent pool is another reason why there's such a workforce gap, is that right now 20% of the cybersecurity workforce is women, and 20% is all collective minorities. And so it's really, we need to diversify that talent stream. And we'll talk about the next one, the unrealistic expectations. I actually did a survey across multiple companies that have cybersecurity job postings up right now. And there are two things that were almost on every one. I'm going to show you on the next slide. And then the need for continued skill development, certifications. So once you get a certification, you have to keep it up. And in order to move to the next level, there's another certification you need. And there's a litany of tests, a litany of tools that you need to be certified on. So just continuing to develop. So first you have a degree, you've got some years of experience, and now all of the tool sets. And that really leads to burnout. And in the burnout, you do a career change. We need to reverse that. We want the career changers to be coming to the cybersecurity industry. So again, I work with federal system integrators. So I work with companies that are putting employees and cybersecurity professionals on a contract. So we have to have certain labor category qualifications. The number one is right off the bat, and this is across the majority of the job postings, is a bachelor's degree. So you can almost consider that an entry to barrier. So number one qualification, a basic labor category qualification, is the bachelor's degree. And next is 5 years of cybersecurity threat analysis experience. So right off the bat, you need a degree and 5 years of experience. Those are the basic labor category qualifications. You won't be able to read this, but there's some things I just want to highlight on here. And these are some of the preferred. So let's just go through, and on the very first bullet, I think you see the last word in that bullet is Splunk. So now I need a degree, I need specific years of experience, and I need a specific named tool. So Splunk is a tool. And many other ones. I was just listening to what the South Carolina is doing in their internship program, and you will also come out with a certification for IBM QRadar, Tenable, Microsoft, Cisco, Checkpoint, Alien Vault. And if you were to look across a lot of labor category and job postings, you'll see all of those, plus many, many more. So now I need a degree, I need X number of years of experience, I need certain OEM or tool certifications, I need 3 years of experience in this, I need 4 years of experience in that. A minimum of 2 years experience in application servers and containers. I need some real world incident management experience. And now we're going to get into sort of they call them soft skills, but they're still very, very necessary. So I need some analytical and critical thinking skills. I need communication skills, written and oral communication skills. I need leadership and listening skills, multitasking ability, negotiation skills, oral and written communication skills, organizational skills, presentation skills, and project management skills. So let's break that down a little bit. Why would you need the soft skills? So let's think about the negotiation skills. Why do you think you would need negotiation skills in the cybersecurity arena? Any guesses to why you would need negotiation skills? There was lots of conversations on it earlier today, and it really was around how do you convince somebody that what you see is really what it is? You need those negotiation skills to say, this needs attention, this doesn't need attention, or it's going to cost $700,000 to implement this new program. So negotiation skills. So you have to you're not just standing there or sitting there and looking at screens, you have things to do with that information that you see in front of you. So there are some requirements and some barriers to entry, and it really depends on if you're public sector or private sector. But the goal is to really focus on how do we close the workforce gap. We know that there is one, we know that it's large, but how do we close it? So what are some of those solutions? Start younger. So does anyone remember career day in like kindergarten, first grade, second grade? Absolutely, right? So who came? They generally had a uniform, and you could identify them right away that is what their profession was. A police officer, a firefighter, a teacher, a doctor, a dentist. You could easily recognize them. But can you look around and recognize a cybersecurity professional? Do you get an idea of what they do? So what we need to do, especially when we're younger and getting into the STEM programs, is paint a picture. We need to bring the intangible to the tangible. How do we make a cybersecurity individual, professional, a tangible? What does that look like? And then tap into diverse talent streams. We need to really reach out to all the HBCUs. There's a lot of programs going on with HBCUs, the technical colleges, transitioning military, and even military spouses. And so there's a lot of work streams or talent streams that we can tap into. And returning to work. Nowadays, companies have some very liberal leave programs. And so when you leave your current job and you're off for maybe 3 months or 6 months, you might not want to go back and do the same thing you were doing again. So how do we tap into those? And that's one of the solutions for closing the cybersecurity workforce gap. The next one is apprenticeships. But apprenticeships are not free. So we can put apprenticeship up here, but there is a cost associated with a small business and even a large business having an apprentice in their company. So we'll just do some rough math really quick. So, and we'll use an example. So the South Carolina DO example is that they have the cohorts, excuse me, for 27.5 hours a week for 12 weeks. So that's 1,440 hours at, excuse me, $15 an hour. So it costs $21,000 or more to host that apprenticeship. So there is, a benefit from a tax credit perspective, but there is a significant cost associated with hosting that apprenticeship. So that is a barrier. Yes, it is a great program, and there are lots of those programs out there, but we have to have the small businesses and even the large businesses be able to sustain that cost for hosting that apprentice. Internships, and I heard several speakers earlier and several other comments say it has to be a paid internship. So if you're back to a paid internship, you're back to that same point where there is a cost. It's one of the solutions, but we have to find a way where the company itself, who's training this workforce, if they're going to spend that money, $21,000 for a part-time apprentice or intern, how do they retain that employee? So they're not training them and then they move on to somewhere else. And then reskilling and translating your skill sets. So on average, Do you guys know on average how many different careers you have in a lifetime? Does anyone have a guess of how many different? Somewhere between 5 to 7 years. That's right. You have 5 to 7 different careers in a lifetime. Unlike my dad, who was an accountant for his entire 45-year career. But we need to be able to translate the skill sets that we have, and we need to be able to reskill some of the workforce that's transitioning. So between reskilling and translating your skill sets, there's people who are going to be doing a career change. We need to find ways to make the cybersecurity arena attractive to them and reduce those barriers. So think about how we reskill. There's so many resources out there. I know some conversations today, especially the one in the fireside chat that was here, talked about how do we pull all of these resources into one place so that you know where to go to find an apprenticeship program, to find an internship program, to find free training, to find, there's all kinds of websites out there. And so where do you go to kind of lower that barrier? And there's initiatives out there right now to provide more than 1 million cybersecurity certifications, which there's a long list of them, a big gamut, by 2026. So that's a lot of people, but the whole goal is to reduce that barrier to entry so that you're provided that certification without having to have the expense of it. And so I think this is pretty much still hot off the presses. But South Carolina launched the statewide cyber workforce initiative. Well, what does that really mean? It is a great initiative, but what does it really mean? How do we break it down? I think that when Governor McMaster came in today, I think one of the first things that he said when he came up to Mike was to be bold. And so we have to be bold, and I think this is a very bold move. So SC Cyber is a statewide cybersecurity initiative, and it's opening an office in North Augusta. Does anyone know where North Augusta is? North Augusta, South Carolina? Okay, good. It's where I was born, but that's not why it's so special here. But it's right across the Savannah River from Augusta, Georgia, which is where the Army is really focusing on their cyber center of excellence. So for South Carolina to be so connected to Augusta and right at the sharing resources potentially, will be kind of recruiting people across the border. But it's right there in the hub. They talked about where this is a swell of cybersecurity workforce, and I do believe that this initiative is going to be part of that. And so I put the mission up here of the cybersecurity, SC Cyber's mission, so that we could see what are the words, and then let's go back to those solutions. So it's to be a liaison connecting people in academia, industry, and government to help produce a skilled cybersecurity workforce. So now let's go back and look at those solutions. Starting younger, getting into academia. What does it mean? Is that K through 12? Is it college? Is it coming out of high school? It's the entire gamut. That's what it is. It's the entire gamut. We have to start younger, and we have to sort of paint that picture. And the South Carolina initiative is definitely going to do that. And so I'm sure that you've heard the term, well, that'll take an act of Congress. Has anyone heard that term? It'll take an act of Congress. Well, there have been 3 recent acts of Congress that are all focused on reducing the cybersecurity workforce gap. 3 commissions have been stood up in the last several years, and they were created specifically to reduce the cybersecurity workforce and so gap. And so those are 3 acts of Congress. So now you know there really are acts of Congress, and there are 3 or more. This is really just 3, but there are acts of Congress focused on reducing that cybersecurity workforce gap. So we've got a little bit from the school and the academic side. We have South Carolina's initiative. There are federal initiatives. And it just happens that in my presentation, I was sharing what I was doing with a colleague of mine, and she used to work at DHS. And she shared with me an initiative that DHS has, and Mr. Bible was with us earlier today, and he was speaking of the same program. So the federal system is aggressive on closing the gap, and they're committed to hiring 100 cybersecurity professionals by the close of the fiscal year. And being in government contracting, we live by the fiscal year, so that is 15 days from today. So within 15 days, they want to hire 100 cybersecurity professionals to pull into their cybersecurity service program. So I just pulled the entry track, because we talked about on the slides before with labor categories, you have to have 5 years of experience, 4 years for this, minimum of 2 for this. And if you look at this entry track, and you heard him speak about it earlier, this cybersecurity specialist position is 0 to 2 years. And the words are so key here. It's an entry-level cybersecurity professional who is primarily a learner, but participating in a formal development program to gain technical expertise. And so they want someone with 0 to 2 years of experience. And people ask me all the time, how do you think I get in? I don't have this degree, and I don't do this, and I don't do that. And the very first thing I tell them is, why would you pre-disqualify yourself? Apply. Find out if your skills translate, but don't pre-disqualify yourself. You will never know if your skills translate if you don't apply. So you have to apply. And this is one federal program that is focused on bringing in the entry level and building them up in order to take those tadpoles with 0 to 2 years of experience and turn them into those cybersecurity princesses and princes. So there is a poll on the app, and it asks, do we think that closing the cybersecurity workforce gap is a fairy tale? So with all the initiatives that we've talked about, do we think it's a fairy tale? When I looked on the app last time, it was just about 50-50. Half of the responders said it's a fairy tale. We're never going to close that gap. And then half of them said, yeah, I think we've got a chance. But it's programs like this that kind of translate your skills and bring you in and give you that opportunity to grow. And this is only one federal initiative. There are many, many federal initiatives like this. But it really goes back to, I think the saying goes, it's not what you know or who you know, but who knows you. And so how do we get all of these programs and all of these opportunities in one place so that people wanting to break into the cybersecurity arena know where to go and know what to do? So in closing, I will poll just inside the room here. Do we think that closing we'll just stick with inside the US. Do we think that closing our cybersecurity workforce gap of 700,000 cyber professionals is a fairy tale? It's a fairy tale. Absolutely, depending on time frame. So tomorrow, we're not going to do it tomorrow. Can we do it over the next 2 years? No. How about the next 5? How about the next 10? But guess what? Okay, we've got a buyer, sold. The next 10. So again, is it a fairy tale? We have so many initiatives. How do we pull them all together? How do we lower those barriers to entry? How do we provide the education, the certifications, the trainings, all of those things needed in order to fill the positions? And a cybersecurity position, it takes longer to fill, almost twice as long to fill as a regular IT position. And then they are also the most recruited professional across IT. So if you are a cybersecurity professional, and a speech I did a couple of months ago, if you are a cybersecurity professional, chances are, and you're on LinkedIn, chances are you're being recruited by someone else. So not only if you're in an apprenticeship program or you're a young cybersecurity professional and you're working for a company, that company is potentially paying to train you and supporting your certifications that you need to get. But there's a chance that you're going to leave them and go somewhere else. So right now, we're just competing with each other for the workforce, and we need to actually grow more so that we stop competing with each other and we are able to close that workforce gap. Thank you.
Any questions for Claire? All right. James has got one. Here we go.
Hello, great presentation. Could you just tell us a little bit about what your organization is doing to address maybe velocity issues in terms of hiring, i.e. the time from submission of an application, receipt, review of an application, and then hire? As I talk to a lot of folks within the industry, one of the biggest gripes, if you will, that I hear is getting ghosted.
Absolutely.
I submit an application, I get an email back saying, hey, thank you so much. If your application aligns with something that we're looking for, we'll be in touch. Or even beyond that, they'll get a first or second contact beyond that automated response, and then absolutely nothing. So could you just tell us a little bit about what your organization is doing within that space, and then maybe some recommendations for others that are maybe looking to overcome those challenges?
Absolutely. In the federal arena, being a government contracting company, there are two reasons that you put a job posting out. Number one is if you're bidding on work, and you need to be sure that if you win that work, you have the pipeline of staff ready to go. I think that that's probably where some of that ghosting comes into place. And then the second reason you put a job posting out is because someone left, someone was promoted, you need an immediate hire. And so what we have done, what ManTech has done is there are so many initiatives. We have an apprenticeship program, we have an internship program, we have an accelerator program, but it's all automated. So it's that automation, and when does the human interaction come in? Because we heard so many AI conversations today, we could automate the process, but that does not eliminate the human that needs to be involved. So that first response you're going to get is an automated email. It's automatically generated when you submit. What ManTech has done is eliminated that automatic generation. So the very first thing that it does, it is screened, literally screened, and you will know immediately. That first response back will be if it's a specific position that you're being put in for, or whether it's a referral or you submitted it. If it matches, then you get a response that says keywords or your skill sets match this position, or a couple of other ones, because they're recruiting across many, many programs. I have to say right now, if I looked at ManTech's career page, there may be greater than 3,000 open positions. That's across the whole company, so not all cyber. So I think removing the automation, making it human interactive, and the email that comes back, if you are not qualified for that position and there isn't something they're going to keep you for, then it's an automatic, that feedback is automatic. Down the line, so you're talking two steps into the recruiting process, I don't know from a recruiting perspective if you can eliminate it 100%, but what I find that we've done is if they fill the position with someone else, they will do a closeout email to all candidates that had been in that process. And that came from internal feedback, because ManTech is huge on promoting from within. And so I've had 3 positions inside of ManTech, and it's because they do absolutely promote from within. But even as an internal recruit, you would get ghosted. And then you'd hear that someone else had been given the position. So a lot of feedback, that's why they removed that sort of everything being automated, and they have learned to close out those open positions. So I think closing it out.
Just not necessarily a question, but a quick comment that I think a lot of people miss for resources. We specifically target separating military and National Guardsmen. A network admin that's in the National Guard or separating military can be quickly transitioned into a cyber field that would take years to do otherwise. So
Absolutely.
Just one of our tactics for what it's worth.
I like that. And so on this list, what you did not see, education, years of experience, certification, was also a clearance. But we just don't publish that. But also that's that other 4th barrier to entry coming into the federal space is that clearance. Absolutely. All right. Anything else? Thank you, guys.
Any other questions for Claire? Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're at the conclusion of our sessions here in Ballroom A, and I was expecting Susie Shannon to come in and announce some prize winners, and I do not know who the prize winners are, so I cannot announce the prize winners, otherwise I would be happy to do it. You want me to fake it? I have a goodie bag down here. Would you like that? I do want to say thank you. You all stuck in here all afternoon, and we had some excellent presentations this afternoon. And so glad that we videotaped them and that we'll be able to share those videotapes and those presentations with other people. Do want to thank you for coming to the conference, spending your day here, choosing to spend your day with us. And we will do this again next year. I believe we've already slated September the 14th. So we will be back here again at the Convention Center and be doing a very similar conference then. So stay tuned to that. You're welcome to stay in the room for a little while. I think Susie probably will make an appearance in the next 15 minutes or so to see if you are a grand prize winner. But thank you. Thank you for your time. We have goodie bags. Did you get a good? You got a goodie bag, didn't you?
I did. I know we were supposed to do some kind of interview or something with Kim.
I know, we were supposed to, see, the way I understood it, when people came along,
They were gonna do it then.
So Alex is their camera person?
Hey there, I just wanted to introduce myself in person. I'm Brian Grady.
Hey, how are you? Good, good. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I used the 6,000 professionals, cybersecurity professionals over the next 10 years.
Yes.
So it's good. You guys stay here all day?
I had another commitment in the morning, so I came at lunchtime.
this does
and
call.
I've been here since. So,
But you got lunch.
yeah.
You came in time for lunch.
I did come in time.
You were good.
Yeah.
I thought you did great.
Yeah, obviously, do evenings. We've got colleagues back there, but
Next door. Yeah, and I attended his
I
session.
am Ian O'Brien,
Still speaking when I had
formerly with the. Oh no. See, now I feel like I need to run away from this conversation.
yes, obviously.
So Mark Hendrick and I used to work together,
Absolutely.
talking about how I've got dreams.
I'm still building my team,
He's
but
got dreams.
see that we
We
have a lot
want to
of
make
members.
something happen. We were at Do together during.
such a nerd, or the apprentice program.
Yes.
You had to be